We are ready to talk about directions for review and preview 3.1.6. In question 84, they're giving you some information about a water to cement ratio, which is 20 to 30. 20 parts water, 30 parts cement. And they're asking you the percent of the mixture that is water. To be able to figure this out, we need to know how many parts total there are. So if there are 20 parts water, 30 parts cement, decide how many parts does that make total. Then if we have 20 parts water, 20 out of that amount, the next step would be to make that into a percent. So for 84, final answer, whatever steps you take is fine, but final answer needs to be expressed as a percent. On question 85, it's talking about some fractions being added and thinking about how could we change those to decimals, could we express those as decimals. And for part A, your job would be to write out 3/10 plus 21/100 in decimal form. I want to see what each of those look like as decimals, and then make sure you also tell me what they equal when we add those decimals together. Part B asks you to take your answer from A and write it as a fraction. So take your answer from A, write it as a fraction for part B. And then for part C, it asks you to rewrite 3/10 as a fraction that could easily be added to 21/100. So here's a little hint on part C, you want to make them have the same denominator. So if you want to change 3/10 into hundredths, use a giant 1 if you need to. But make sure they have the same denominator, then they can be easily added together. For question 86, we have this set of axes set up here. It's already on your answer sheet for you. And we have to take the data that's in the question and turn it into a histogram. The nice part and helpful part about the data is that the numbers are already in order from least to greatest. So if we're going to create our histogram, we need to decide what does each bin represent. So if the bin width looks like it's 10, the first bin would be for 0 through 9. The second bin would be from 10 through 19, and so on and so on. So just be very mindful of where you're putting numbers like 50, 60, 80, 90. Make sure you get those included in the correct bin. On 87, they're getting us started with thinking about backward situations. So if we're going to have, if you walk forward 5 feet, you can undo that by walking backward 5 feet. So for A through F, they want to know the opposite action that could occur. And you have to say more than just -8 or +2 or whatever happens to be. I want the words, the statements written just like they are in the question, just with the backwards wording. So keep in mind, if it says that something is going up, the opposite would mean that it's going down. If the opposite of earning something would be to lose something. The opposite of losing something might mean to find something. So there are multiple ways we can represent some of these, but I want the whole statement written out on A through F. For question 88, they show you a diagram that's made up of base 10 blocks. And using that diagram, we're supposed to answer some questions. Part A, they want to know both the perimeter and the area. Since these are base 10 blocks, think about our labels. We're going to say units and square units for our labels. Area is the quick one to find. Keep that in mind here. Area is where we look at what are the values of the blocks, we add them together, how many hundreds, how many tens, how many ones. Very quick to get your answer for area when we work with base 10 blocks. When it comes to perimeter, you've got to look carefully and say, okay, there's this many across the top, this many along the side, this much across the bottom. And don't forget that one little spot on the right of those tens, that's going to be actually 10 minus 3. So keep that in mind as you're adding all the way around to get your perimeter. Part B says to draw a base 10 block shape that has a value of 126. You have to use as few pieces as possible. So think about 100 block, how many tens, how many ones. You can arrange it however you want, but we want to use the fewest pieces possible. Once you have your figure drawn and arranged, they're asking you to find the perimeter. We don't necessarily need to make it the biggest or the smallest possible. It's whatever you want, but tell me what the perimeter is once you have it arranged. And down here at the bottom, when you tell me your perimeter, we also need a label to include, which would be units.